Okay, and hello again. And today I'm going to continue on with a reading from Ajahn Chah's book. It's called The Collected Teachings of Ajahn Chah. This is volume 1. It's from a 3-volume set. It's from the Buddhist monk Ajahn Chah, the chap responsible primarily for bringing Theravada Buddhism to the West. And the last time I read chapters 1 and 2. Today I'll do, in the next half hour or so, chapters 3 and 4. Okay, so here we are. This is pure Buddhism. Chapter 3, Convention and Deliberation. The things of this world are merely conventions of our own making. Having established them, we get lost in them and refuse to let go, giving rise to clinging to personal views and opinions. This clinging never ends. It is samsara, flowing endlessly on. It has no completion. Now, if we know conventional reality, then we'll know liberation. If we clearly know liberation, then we'll know convention. This is to know the Dharma. Here there is completion. Take people, for instance. In reality, people don't have any names. We are born naked into the world. Our names arise only through convention. I've contemplated this and seen that if you don't know the truth of this convention, it can be really harmful. It's simply something we use for convenience. Without it, we couldn't communicate. There would be nothing to say, no language. I've seen Westerners when they sit in meditation together in the West. When they get up after sitting, men and women together, sometimes they go and touch each other on the head. When I saw this, I thought, if we cling to convention, it gives rise to defilements right there. If we can let go of convention, give up our opinions, we are at peace. Like the generals and colonels, men of rank and position who come to see me. When they come, they say, "Oh, please touch my head." If they ask like this, there's nothing wrong with it. They're glad to have their heads touched. But if you tap their heads in the middle of the street, it'd be a different story. This is because of clinging. So I feel that letting go is really the way to peace. Touching a head is against our customs, but in reality it is nothing. When they agree to having it touched, there's nothing wrong with it, just like touching a cabbage or a potato. Accepting, giving up, letting go, this is the way of lightness. Wherever you're clinging, there's becoming and birth right there. There's danger right there. The Buddha taught about convention, and he taught to undo convention in the right way and so reach liberation. This is freedom, not to cling to conventions. All things in this world have a conventional reality. Having established them, we should not be fooled by them, because getting lost in them really leads to suffering. This point concerning rules and conventions is of utmost importance. One who can get beyond them is beyond suffering. However, they are a characteristic of our world. Take Mr. Bunma, for instance. He used to be just one of the crowd, but now he's been appointed the district commissioner. It's just a convention, but it's a convention we should respect. It's part of the world of people. If you think, before we were friends, we used to work at the tailor's together, and then you go and pat him on the head in public, he'll get angry. It's not right, he'll resent it. So we should follow the conventions in order to avoid giving rise to resentment. It's useful to understand convention. Living in the world is just about this. Know the right time and place. Know the person. Why is it wrong to go against conventions? It's wrong because of people. You should be clever, knowing both convention and deliberation. Know the right time for each. If we know how to use rules and conventions comfortably, then we are skilled. But if we try to behave according to the higher level of reality in the wrong situation, this is wrong. Where is it wrong? It's wrong with people's defilements, that's where. People all have defilements. In one situation we behave one way, in another situation we must behave in another way. We should know the ins and outs because we live within conventions. Problems occur because people cling to them. If we suppose something to be, then it is. It's there because we suppose it to be there. But if you look closely, in the absolute sense, these things don't really exist. As I've often said, before we were laymen, and now we are monks. We lived within the convention of laymen, and now we live within the convention of monks. We are monks by convention, not monks through liberation. In the beginning, we establish conventions like this, but if a person merely ordains, this doesn't mean he overcomes defilements. If we take a handful of sand and agree to call it salt, does this make it salt? It is salt, but only in name, not in reality. You couldn't use it to cook with. Its only use is within the realms of that agreement, because there is really no salt there, only sand. It becomes salt only through our supposing it to be so. This word liberation is itself just a convention, but it refers to that which is beyond conventions. Having achieved freedom, having reached liberation, we still have to use convention in order to refer to it as liberation. If we didn't have convention, we couldn't communicate, so it does have its use. For example, people have different names, but they're all people just the same. If we didn't have names to differentiate between each other, and we wanted to call out to somebody standing in a crowd saying, "Hey, person," would be useless. You couldn't say who would answer you, because they're all person. But if you called, "Hey, John," then John would respond, and others wouldn't. Names fulfill just this need. Through them, we can communicate. They provide the basis for social behavior. So you should know both convention and liberation. Conventions have a use, but in reality, there really isn't anything there. Even people are non-existent. They are merely groups of elements, born of causal conditions, growing dependent on conditions, existing for a while, then disappearing in the natural way. No one can oppose or control it. But without conventions, we would have nothing to say. We'd have no names, no practice, no work. Rules and conventions are established to give us a language, to make things convenient, and that's all. Take money, for example. In olden times, there weren't any coins or notes. They had no value. People used to barter goods, but those things were difficult to keep, so they created money using coins and notes. Perhaps in the future we'll have a new king, decree that we don't have to use paper money. We should use wax, melting it down and pressing it into lumps. We'll say this is money and use it throughout the country. Let alone wax, they might even decide to make chicken dung the local currency. All other things can't be money, just chicken dung. Then people would fight and kill each other over chicken dung. This is the way it is. You could use many examples to illustrate convention. What we use for money is simply a convention that we've set up. It has its use within that convention. Having decreed it to be money, it becomes money. But in reality, what is money? Nobody can say. When there is a popular agreement about something, then a convention comes about to fulfill the need. The world is just this. This is convention, but to get ordinary people to understand liberation is really difficult. Our money, our house, our family, our children and relatives are simply conventions that we have invented. But really, seen in the light of Dhamma, they don't belong to us. Maybe if we hear this, we don't feel so good, but reality is like that. These things have value only through the established conventions. If we establish that it doesn't have value, then it doesn't have value. If we establish that it has value, then it has value. This is the way it is. We bring convention into the world to fulfill need. Even this body is not really ours. We just suppose it to be so. It's truly just an assumption on our part. If you try to find a real substantial self within it, you can't. There are merely elements which are born, continue for a while, and then die. Everything is like this. There is no real true substance to it, but it's proper that we use it. It's like a cup. At some time that cup must break, but while it's there, you should use it and look after it well. It's a tool for your use. If it breaks, there is trouble. So even though it must break, you should try your utmost to preserve it. And so we have the four supports, which the Buddha taught again and again to contemplate. They are the supports on which a monk depends to continue his practice. As long as you live, you must depend on them, but you should understand them, don't cling to them, giving rise to craving in your mind. Convention and liberation are continually related like this. Even though we use convention, don't place your trust in it as being the truth. If you cling to it, suffering will arise. The case of right and wrong is a good example. Some people see wrong as being right and right as being wrong, but in the end, who really knows what is right and what is wrong? We don't know. Different people establish different conventions about what is right and wrong, but the Buddha took suffering as his guideline. If you want to argue about it, there's no end to it. One says right, another says wrong. One says wrong, another says right. In truth, we really don't know right and wrong at all. But at a useful, practical level, we can say that right is not to harm oneself and not to harm others. This way fulfills a constructive purpose for us. After all, both rules and conventions and liberation are simply dhammas. One is higher than the other, but they go hand in hand. There is no way that we can guarantee that anything is definitely like this or like that. So the Buddha said just to leave it be. Leave it be as uncertain. However much you like or dislike it, you should understand it as uncertain. Regardless of time and place, the whole practice of Dhamma comes to completion at the point where there is nothing. It's a place of surrender, of emptiness, of laying down the burden. This is the finish. It's not like the person who says, "Why is the flag fluttering in the wind?" I say it's because of the wind. Another person says it's because of the flag. The other retorts that it's because of the wind. There's no end to this. The same as the old riddle, which came first, the chicken or the egg. There's no way to reach conclusion. This is just nature. All these things we say are merely conventions. We establish them ourselves. If you know these things with wisdom, then you'll know impermanence, suffering, and not self. This is the outlook which leads to enlightenment. Training and teaching people with varying levels of understanding is really difficult. Some people have certain ideas. You tell them something and they don't believe you. You tell them the truth and they say it's not true. I'm right, you're wrong. There's no end to this. If you don't let go, there will be suffering. I've told you before about the 4 men who go into the forest. They hear a chicken crowing, caca. One of them wonders, is that a rooster or a hen? 3 of them say together, it's a hen, but the other doesn't agree. He insists it's a rooster. How could a hen crow like that, he asks. They retort, well, it has a mouth, hasn't it? They argue and argue till the tears fall, really getting upset over it. But in the end, they're all wrong. Whether you say a hen or a rooster, they're only names. We establish these conventions, saying a rooster is like this, a hen is like that, a rooster cries like this, a hen cries like that, and this is how we get stuck in the world. Remember this. Actually, if you just say that really there's no hen and no rooster, then that's the end of it. In the field of convention and reality, one side is right and the other side is wrong, but there will never be complete agreement. Arguing till the tears fall has no use. The Buddha taught not to cling. How do we practice non-clinging? We practice simply by giving up clinging. But this non-clinging is very difficult to understand. It takes wisdom to investigate and penetrate this, to really achieve non-clinging. When you think about it, whether people are happy or sad, content or discontent, doesn't depend on their having little or having much. It depends on wisdom. All distress can be transcended only through wisdom, through seeing the truth of things. So the Buddha exhorted us to investigate, to contemplate. This contemplation means simply to try to solve these problems correctly. This is our practice. Like birth, old age, sickness and death, they are the most natural and common of occurrences. The Buddha taught to contemplate birth, old age, sickness and death, but some people don't understand this. What is there to contemplate, they say? They're born, but they don't know birth. They will die, but they don't know death. A person who investigates these things repeatedly will see. Having seen, he will gradually solve his problems. Even if he still has clinging, if he has wisdom and sees that old age, sickness and death are the way of nature, he will be able to relieve suffering. We study the Dhamma simply for this, to cure suffering. There isn't really much at the basis of Buddhism. There's just the birth, the death of suffering, and this is the Buddha called the truth. Birth is suffering, old age is suffering, sickness is suffering, and death is suffering. People don't see this suffering as the truth. If we know truth, then we know suffering. This pride in personal opinions, these arguments, they have no end. In order to put our minds at rest, to find peace, we should contemplate our past, the present, and the things which are in store for us, like birth, old age, sickness, and death. What can we do to avoid being plagued by these things? Even though we may still have a little worry, if we investigate until we know according to the truth, all suffering will abate, because we will no longer cling to things. That was chapter 3. Now, chapter 4. No abiding. We hear some of the teachings and can't really understand them. We think they shouldn't be the way they are, so we don't follow them, but really there is a reason to all the teachings. Maybe it seems that things shouldn't be the way they are, but they are. At first, I didn't even believe in sitting meditation. I couldn't see what use it would be just to sit with your eyes closed. And walking meditation, walking from this tree to that tree, turning around and walking back again. Why bother, I thought? What's the use of all that walking? I thought that like that, but actually walking and sitting meditation are of great use. Some people's tendencies cause them to prefer walking meditation. Others prefer sitting, but you can't do without either of them. The scriptures refer to the 4 postures: standing, walking, sitting, and lying down. We live with these 4 postures. We may prefer one to the other, but we must use all 4. The scriptures say to make these 4 postures even, to make the practice even in all postures. At first I couldn't figure out what it meant to make them even. Maybe it means we sleep for 2 hours and stand for 2 hours, then walk for 2 hours. Maybe that's it. I tried it, couldn't do it. It was impossible. That's not what it meant to make the postures even. Making the postures even refers to the mind, to our awareness, giving rise to the wisdom in the mind, to illumine the mind. This wisdom of ours must be present in all postures. We must know or understand constantly. Standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, we know all mental states as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. Making the postures even in this way can be done. It is possible. Whether like or dislike are present in the mind, we don't forget our practice. We are aware. If we just focus our attention on the mind constantly, then we have the gist of the practice. Whether we experience mental states which the world knows as good or bad, we don't forget ourselves. We don't get lost in good or bad. We just go straight. Making the postures constant in this way is possible. If we have constancy in our practice, when we are praised, then it's simply praise. If we are blamed, it's just blame. We don't get high or low over it. We stay right here. Why? Because we see the danger in all those things. We see their results. We are constantly aware of the danger in both praise and blame. Normally, if we have a good mood in mind, the mind is good also. We see them as the same thing. If we have a bad mood, the mind goes bad as well. We don't like it. This is the way it is. This is uneven practice. If we have constancy just to the extent of knowing our moods and knowing we're clinging to them, this is better already. That is, we have awareness, we know what's going on, but we still can't let go. We see ourselves clinging to the good and the bad, and we know it. We cling to good and know it's not right practice, but still can't let go. This is 50 to 70% of the practice already. There still isn't release, but we know that if we could let go, that would be the way to peace. We keep seeing the equally harmful consequences of all our likes and dislikes, of praise and blame continuously. Whatever the conditions may be, the mind is constant in this way. But if worldly people get blamed or criticized, they get really upset. If they get praised, it cheers them up. They say it's good and get really happy over it. If we know the truth of our various moods, if we know the consequences of clinging to praise and blame, the danger of clinging to anything at all, we will become sensitive to our moods. We will know that clinging to them really causes suffering. We see this suffering and we see our very clinging as the cause of that suffering. We begin to see the consequences of grabbing and clinging to good and bad because we've grasped them and seen the result before, no real happiness. So now we look for the way to let go. Where is this way to let go? In Buddhism we say, don't cling to anything. We never stop hearing about this. Don't cling to anything. This means to hold, but not to cling. Like this flashlight, we think, what is this? So we pick it up. Oh, it's a flashlight. Then we put it down again. We hold things in this way. If we didn't hold anything at all, what could we do? We couldn't do walking meditation or do anything, so we must hold things first. It's wanting, yes, that's true, but later on it leads to parami, virtue or perfection. Like wanting to come here, for instance. Venerable Jagaro came to Wat Pa Pong. He had to want to come first. If he hadn't felt that he wanted to come, he wouldn't have come. For anybody, it's the same. They come here because of wanting. But when wanting arises, don't cling to it. So you come and then you go back. What is this? We pick it up, look at it and see, oh, it's a flashlight. Then we put it down. This is called holding, but not clinging. We let go. We know and then we let go. To put it simply, we say just this. Know, then let go. Keep looking and letting go. This, they say, is good. This, they say, is not good. Know and then let go. Good and bad, we know it all, but then we let it go. We don't foolishly cling to things, but we hold them with wisdom. Practicing in this posture can be constant. You must be constant like this. Make the mind know in this way. Let wisdom arise. When the mind has wisdom, what else is there to look for? We should reflect on what we're doing here, for what reason we are living here, what we are working for. In the world, they work for this or that reward, but the monks teach something a little deeper than that. Whatever we do, we ask for no return. We work for no reward. Worldly people work because they want this or that, because they want some gain or other, but the Buddha taught to work just in order to work. We don't ask for anything beyond that. If you do something just to get some return, it'll cause suffering. Try it out for yourself. You want to make your mind peaceful, so you sit down and try to make it peaceful. You'll suffer. Try it. Our way is more refined. We do and then let go. Do and then let go. Look at the Brahmin who makes a sacrifice. He has some desire in mind, so he makes a sacrifice. Those actions of his won't help him transcend suffering because he's acting on desire. In the beginning, we practice with some desire in mind. We practice on, but we don't attain our desire. So we practice until we reach a point where we're practicing for no return. We're practicing in order to let go. This is something we must see for ourselves. It's very deep. Maybe we practice because we want to go to Nibbana. Right there, you won't get to Nibbana. It's natural to want peace, but it's not really correct. We must practice without wanting anything at all. If we don't want anything at all, what will we get? We don't get anything. Whatever you get is cause for suffering, so we practice not getting anything. Just this is called making the mind empty. It's empty, but there's still doing. This emptiness is something people don't usually understand. Only those who teach it see the real value in it. It's not the emptiness of not having anything. It's emptiness within the things that are here. Like this flashlight. We should see this flashlight as empty. Because of the flashlight, there is emptiness. It's not the emptiness where we can't see anything. It's not like that. People who understand like that have got it all wrong. You must understand emptiness within the things that are here. Those who are still practicing because they have some gaining idea are like the Brahmin making a sacrifice just to fulfill some wish. Like the people who come to see me to be sprinkled with holy water. When I ask them, why do you want this holy water? They say, we want to live happily and comfortably and not get sick. There. They'll never transcend suffering that way. The worldly way is to do things for a reason, to get some return. But in Buddhism, we do things without the idea of gaining anything. The world has to understand things in terms of cause and effect, but the Buddha teaches us to go above and beyond cause and effect. His wisdom was to go above cause, beyond effect, to go above birth and beyond death, to go above happiness and beyond suffering. Think about it. There is nowhere to stay. Will people live in a home? To leave home and go somewhere, there is no home. We don't know how to do it because we've always lived with becoming, with clinging. If we can't cling, we don't know what to do. So most people don't want to go to Nibbana. There's nothing there, nothing at all. Look at the roof and the floor here. The upper extreme is the roof. That's an abiding. The lower extreme is the floor. That's another abiding. But in the empty space between the floor and the roof, there's nowhere to stand. One could stand on the roof or stand on the floor, but not on that empty space. Where there is no abiding, that's where there's emptiness. And Nibbana is this emptiness. People hear this and they back up a bit. They don't want to go. They're afraid they won't see their children or relatives. This is why when we bless the lay people, we say, May you have a long life, beauty, happiness and strength. This makes them really happy, sadhu, they all say. They like these things. If you start talking about emptiness, they don't want it. They're attached to abiding. But have you ever seen a very old person with a beautiful complexion? Have you ever seen an old person with a lot of strength or a lot of happiness? No, but we say, long life, beauty, happiness and strength, and they're all really pleased. Every single one says, sadhu. This is like the Brahmin who makes oblations to achieve some wish. In our practice, we don't make oblations. We don't practice in order to get some return. We don't want anything. If we want something, then there is still something there. Just make the mind peaceful and have done with it. But if I talk like this, you may not be very comfortable because you want to be born again. All you lay practitioners should get close to the monks and see their practice. To be close to the monks means to be close to the Buddha, to be close to his Dhamma. The Buddha said, Ananda, practice a lot, develop your practice. Whoever sees the Dhamma sees me, and whoever sees me sees the Dhamma. Where is the Buddha? We may think the Buddha has been and gone, but the Buddha is the Dhamma, the truth. Some people like to say, oh, if I had been born in the time of the Buddha, I would have gone to Nibbana. Here, stupid people talk like this. The Buddha is still here. The Buddha is truth. Regardless of whoever is born or dies, the truth is still here. The truth never departs from the world. It's there all the time. Whether a Buddha is born or not, whether someone knows it or not, the truth is still there. So we should get close to the Buddha. We should come within and find the Dhamma. When we reach the Dhamma, we will reach the Buddha. Seeing the Dhamma, we will see the Buddha, and all doubts will dissolve. To give a comparison, it's like the teacher, Chu. At first he wasn't a teacher. He was just Mr. Chu. When he studied and passed the necessary grades, he became a teacher and became known as Teacher Chu. How did he become a teacher? Through studying the required subjects, thus allowing Mr. Chu to become Teacher Chu. When Teacher Chu dies, the study to become a teacher still remains, and whoever studies it will become a teacher. That course of study to become a teacher doesn't disappear anywhere, just like the truth, the knowing of which enabled the Buddha to become the Buddha. So the Buddha is still here. Whoever practices and sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. These days people have got it all wrong. They don't know where the Buddha is. They say, if I'd been born in the time of the Buddha, I would have become a disciple of his and become enlightened. That's just foolishness. Don't go thinking that at the end of the rains retreat you'll disrobe. Don't think like that. In an instant, an evil thought can arise in the mind. You could kill somebody. In the same way, it only takes a split second for good to flash into the mind, and you're already there. And don't think that you have to ordain for a long time to be able to meditate. The right practice lies in the instant we make kamma. In a flash, an evil thought arises, and before you know it, you've committed some heavy kamma. In the same way, all the disciples of the Buddha practiced for a long time, but the time they attained enlightenment was merely one thought moment. So don't be heedless, even in minor things. Try hard, try to get close to the monks, contemplate things, and then you'll know about monks. Well, that's enough, huh? It must be getting late now. Some people are getting sleepy. The Buddha said not to teach Dhamma to sleepy people. So I'm going to leave it there for today. That's the chapter 3 and 4 of the collected teachings of Ajahn Chah. Just to show you just very quickly, I don't think I showed you his photograph today. This is a photograph of Ajahn Chah, who died in 1973. No, sorry, died in 1992, age 73. And next time I've got some interesting reading I think you'll be interested in, a text that I find very interesting, so you might be interested in it too. So we're only 29 minutes in, but I think that's enough for today. So okay, until next time, best of luck, and as I always say, in this world, only kindness will save us. And see you next time, okay? Toodaloo. Bye-bye.